what's happened is because there have been so many foreclosures that the banks and the government service entities, the GSEs, which are FHA, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac, have so many foreclosures that they are now bundling them and putting them in packages based on geography and selling them to hedge funds and other investors, investment groups, in particular the single-family homes now. The hedge funds were never interested in them before because they couldn't buy enough in a concentrated area. They were spread out, and so they were much more difficult to manage and to maintain and more expensive. Now they're able to buy them in a package where you may be able to buy 100 very closely located to one another. They're much easier to manage now and to maintain and less costly to operate. So now the hedge funds are very interested because they can buy these homes very cheaply, rent them out and do a positive cash flow year over year, and hopefully in 3, 5, 7 years down the road they'll be able to sell them for a lot more money than what they bought them for. So in Florida we have about 9 million total residential properties. Out of those we have about 1.1 million, or about 12%, that are troubled, distressed, and will amount to a future foreclosure sale or a short sale. Now, another thing I'm starting to see now is where hedge funds would only buy properties if they could get them very cheap. But in recent months, I'm seeing where some hedge funds are paying what I think are ridiculously overpriced payments for homes now. For instance, a home that sold a couple of months ago for $89,000, a hedge fund is now buying for $149,000. There's no reason that house has gone up $60,000 in 2 months. And you have to wonder, well, why would they be doing something like this? My opinion is we may be seeing the early stage of some market manipulation by the hedge funds. Now they bought so many properties very cheap, it's in their best interest to see prices come up. So they may be overpaying for certain properties to use those as comparables for appraisals that will lift the value of the other properties that they've already acquired and raise them up. So we may be seeing some early signs of market manipulation. Now, they never could do that before because they couldn't buy enough in an area to really make a difference. Now we've got some hedge funds that are buying 200 and 300 homes almost a month in different markets. For instance, Blackstone, one of the biggest hedge funds, has bought 250 homes over in the Sarasota area just in the last 2 months. When you can buy that many homes, then you can affect the market values in those areas. And if you can affect them, if you can have that type of effect in one market, and as realtors always say, real estate is local. Well, if you buy enough in one location, you can affect markets there. If you buy enough in several locations, you may be able to affect the values for the entire state. So it's early. I can't say, and I can't prove this, but in my opinion, we may be seeing the first signs of hedge funds trying to manipulate real estate prices.
What is the role of the government in all of this matter?
Well, the government, of course, has guaranteed loans. The banks have made loans, they've packaged them up. In many cases, they have sold them to the government entities. They've acted as the secondary mortgage market. Probably 90% of the loans in recent years have been resold to the government. So, of course, it's in their best interest, of course, to see values go up. Now, they have so many foreclosures right now that they are starting to move them. But they've been holding off as long as they could because there were indications that prices were beginning to rise. Of course, that's in their best interest because then they're going to get more money and not lose as much on these loan packages. So the GSEs per se have acted as the secondary mortgage market in recent times for the mortgages that have been made. And like I said earlier, about 90% of the loans have been resold to the FHA, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac. So they have a very large liability on these loans. And if property values don't go up and we continue to see these foreclosures, we could see it cost the taxpayers money. Right now, with prices rising, they're already starting to sell these properties in bundles because many of them they can sell now and break even or even make a marginal profit. So the government has been a guarantor of loans, acting as a secondary market. They are now also bundling up these loans and selling them just as the banks are. The problem is, to buy the government loans, you have to be a very large entity based on their rules and their criteria. So an individual like myself or you or anybody else, we're never going to be able to qualify to buy these packages of homes from the government.
If we see this from the free market perspective, it's good for the economy. I mean.
Well, that's a good question. If real estate values are going up, you can make a good case that it's good for the U.S. economy. 70% of our gross domestic product is based on consumer spending. Much of that consumer spending is based on equity that they have in their home, and they've used that for large ticket purchases, cars, vacations, funding a college education for their children, funding their own retirement. When you don't have that equity buildup for homeowners, it takes a lot out of our economy. When real estate prices go down, people can't afford to buy as much. So it has a very negative drag on our economy.
There is something else we should know about hedge funds trying to influence the market and the Florida economy.
Well, I think anytime you have a company or a group of companies that can affect values for all the citizens in an area, whether it's a city, a state, or a country, that goes against our free market principles. Now, we know that's happened. We have had monopolies, we have had oligopolies that have taken control of different industries at times. But the government has always broken them up because that goes against our free market democracy and our free market economy. Now, we see hedge funds are kind of taking over real estate in different areas. The question now is going to be, will the government do anything to level the playing field so that the first-time home buyer or the move-up buyer has as good a chance of competing to buy a property as the hedge funds do? But if the hedge funds can go directly to a bank and buy 200 at a time, it's much easier for the bank to sell those in one package than to do one at a time 200 times over. So it's in the bank's best interest to go ahead and sell to the hedge fund. But that may be negative and have a long-term negative impact on our economy because so many individuals that would be homeowners, that would be building equity in their homes, not going to have that opportunity now. They're going to move into the renter's pool. I believe that about 20% of the people will benefit by getting a loan modification or a mortgage principal reduction. But it's only going to be about 1 in 5. So that means 80% of the distressed properties are going to have to be sold. And that's going to have a negative impact on our economy moving forward. But the big thing is, most of these properties are going to wind up in the hands of the hedge funds and the investment groups, and they're not going to be sold to individual buyers. And our economy, long term, is going to be affected by that. And these are not just U.S. funds, by the way. Some are from Canada, some are from Europe, some are from South and Central America. So a lot of the purchases of these properties are not even going to U.S. companies or U.S. ownership, which means that the rent that's being paid is not going to be recirculated here in America. It's going to go to those owners in Europe or in Latin America, which means that it takes a large amount of money out of circulation in this country and puts it circulating in other countries. That also can have a negative impact on the U.S. economy.